This video is about subtracting fractions. But this time we're subtracting with regrouping, or we also call it borrowing. It says that we have like denominators, so each of them will have denominators that are the same for this exercise. So we have our four columns again: problem, picture, work, and answer. We're going to start with our problem and see what information it can give us. James had 2 1/3 pounds of M&Ms. He gave his sister 1 2/3 pounds. How many pounds of M&Ms did he have left? Okay, so we start back and we think, okay, what's important? He had 2 1/3 pounds. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite this. This is James. He had 2 1/3 pounds of M&Ms. He gave his sister 1 2/3. So gave sister 1 2/3 pounds of the M&Ms. How many pounds of M&Ms did he have left? Well, what I'm looking for is pounds left. That is my question I have to answer. So I look at my numbers and I'm going to change it into pizzas. So let's say that James has these pizzas. In my picture, I'm going to draw the pizzas. He has a whole pizza. He has another whole pizza. And then he has, really, he had to buy a whole nother pizza, but he only has a third. So think about your picture. How would I show 1/3 of my pizza? Okay, so first it had to have been cut into thirds, and I'm going to try my hardest to make it look even. Because we know if we're cutting up pizza, you need the same size slice I do, because if you get a bigger slice than me, I'm going to be upset. I want the same amount that you have. So we have 1/3 that he still has, so he probably ate the other pieces. He also has here 2 wholes, so these are complete pizzas still. Nobody's eaten anything on these yet. So we've got 2 1/3. But it says that he gave his sister 1 2/3. Okay, so he gave his sister 1 2/3. The 1 is a whole, meaning he gave her a whole pizza. So if he gave that to her, that pizza is gone. He only has now 1 pizza and still that third. But that's just 1 that he gave her. He needs to also give 2/3. Well, I don't have 2/3. I only have 1/3. But I have a whole nother pizza. So what can I do to the other pizza so that I can show that I gave her 2/3? Well, I have to cut it up. In order to give her another third, I have to cut it up. It needs to be in thirds. Okay, now what I'm looking at is I have 1 whole pizza. This is 1, but it's also 3/3 because there are 3 pieces out of a total of 3. If I gave her 2/3, well, now I can go back down to this guy and say, okay, there's her 1/3. That's just 1/3. And here's a second third. Now I've given her 1 whole pizza here. I gave her 1 2/3. So what does he have left? He has a third here, and he has a third here, So he still has 2/3 of a pizza that he can eat. So let's look at the work, how that would look with the numbers. So I started off with 2 and 1/3, and I did change it to pizzas. I know we're talking to M&Ms, but I want you to see with the picture pizzas. So he starts with, we talked about 2 whole pizzas and then 1/3 of another. So 2 and 1/3, but he gave 1 and 2/3. And we decided that we have to subtract if we gave something away. So if you go through the process of subtracting fractions, you know the first thing that we look at is the denominator. Well, the denominator is the same. And remember our title, like denominators, so they're probably all going to be the same on this one. But we still need to check, because we cannot do anything with our fractions if they are not the same pieces when we are subtracting. So I have my 3. Then I go to my numerators, and I've always said, okay, now I just subtract my numerators, but I have a problem. Can I take 1 and subtract 2? Well, if we were doing that in just whole numbers, we would say, no, we can't do that. So what if our numbers were 11 minus 2? How would we solve the problem that I can't take and subtract 1 minus 2? Well, we would borrow. We would borrow from our neighbor, and we would give that 1 on this side and make it 11. Well, it's the same kind of concept, but we're going to give 1 in a fraction form. Okay, so what would that look like? Well, my issue is this 1/3 right here. My 1/3, I don't have enough to take away 2/3. So I'm going to borrow from the 2. The 2 becomes 1. I'm going to give 1 whole to the fractions side. But I can't just stick a 1 whole on the fraction side. It's got to be a fraction. Well, how can we write a fraction that means 1 whole, that keeps the same denominator, because we don't want to have to then get a common denominator again. We already have a common denominator, so let's keep it common. What could I write in the numerator that would mean the same as 1 whole? Well, 3/3 is equivalent to 1 whole, just like in our picture with this pizza. Before we split it up, it was a whole, but we split up into 3 pieces. The 3 pieces were just still there. So when I borrow, I'm actually giving 3/3 to my fraction side. The problem is I already had a third. I already had 1/3, and I need to give 3/3. Well, I'm just going to combine them. If I had a third and I give you 3/3, I now have 4/3. Now can I take 2/3 and subtract? Well, yes, because now denominators are still the same. Now all I have to do is take the numerator 4, subtract 2, and get 2. And I know my denominator stays the same. But don't forget to go back over and look at these whole numbers. I have a 1 minus 1. Well, 1 minus 1 is 0, but I'm not going to write 0 and 2/3. My answer would be, I have 2/3, and remember this is our pizza example, I have 2/3 left of the pizza to eat. Okay, so let's look at another one. Sarah wants to practice the piano for 1 2/5 hours today, but she was only able to practice for 4/5 of an hour when she was interrupted. How much time does she still need to practice to reach her goal? Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to use the pizza thing again, just the picture or the model of the pizza. Okay, so if she has 1 2/5, well, if I have 1 2/5, I need to break this up into 5 pieces. Oh, that's not going to be easy. 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, that kind of did the best we can. We're going to pretend those are perfectly even. So I have 1 2/5. That just means that I have this one complete, and I have 2/5 of another one. So somewhere probably, let's think pizzas, I ate the 3 pieces. But we're going to take away the 4/5. We want to subtract the 4/5. If you look at my picture, I only have a 1/5 and a 1/5. Well, that's only 2/5, but I have to subtract 4/5. So I have to cut up my other pizza. I can't leave it whole. So if we have, okay, that one's even worse. We're going to pretend that's even. We had to cut it up into the 5 pieces again. Now can I take 4/5? Well, yes, because here is a 1/5. I got rid of that. Let me switch over to red so you can see it. I got rid of that. That's a 1/5. This one is a 1/5. Well, all of these guys are 5ths. So I just need to get rid of 2 more 5ths. That's 1 2 3 4 5ths that I subtracted or that I got rid of. I still have 3 pieces of pizza left out of 5, so I still have 3/5. Okay, so let's look at what that would look like in our pictures again. We started out with 1 2/5. Remember, I changed it to pizzas for the visual, so we're going to leave the question alone for a minute, the details. I just want to think pizza. I started out with 1 2/5. We needed to subtract 4/5. Go through your process. What do I do first? I look at the denominator. Is it the same? Yes, they're the same. Then I would normally just go to my numerator and subtract. Well, 2 minus 4 I can't do. So I have to borrow. I'm going to borrow from the 1 because I need that 2 to get bigger. When I borrow from the 1, we're going to give a whole, but I need it to be in fraction form. My common denominator is 5. So what digit do I put on the top for the numerator to make that equal to 1 whole? Well, I would put a 5 up there. So I'm giving 5/5. Well, I already had 2/5. I'm getting 5/5. That means I now have 7/5, which was exactly before we started taking things away back in our picture. Once we cut that second pizza up, I had 5 pieces and 2 more. That's 7/5. And then I just bring over my 4/5. Now can I subtract? Well, yeah, because I know 7 minus 4 is 3. Denominator stays the same because it's 5 in each. Look back over at your whole number. I borrowed from the 1. That makes this 0. This is nothing's right here. So this is nothing. Again, I don't have to write that. My answer is simply 3/5. Okay, so let's try one on your own. Pause the video, see how far you can get, see if you can get the whole thing done, and then come back and check with me. Okay, so number 3, Tony ran 1 7/10 miles to school. He ran 2 3/10 miles to football practice. How much farther did he run to practice than to school? Well, we need to be careful with this one because they changed up the order of our numbers. They're asking how much farther did he run to practice. Well, this number right here was practice, so that's 2 3/10. Then tells us to subtract school. Well, school was right here, 1 7/10. So we want to be careful and write our numbers the way that they're asking the question, not necessarily how they gave us the information. Okay, so I set it up. I have 2 3/10 and 1 7/10. And we can still think of this like pizzas. I've got 2 full pizzas and 3/10 of another. I need to subtract 1 whole pizza and 7/10 of another. Okay, you can always think pizzas. We can always change it. Check first. Denominator, is it the same? Yes. Numerator, subtract 3 minus 7. Well, I can't subtract 3 minus 7. So I need to borrow. I'm going to borrow from the 2 because I need that 3 to get bigger. The 2 is going to turn into a 1. And they're giving that whole number. Sorry, 1 whole, not whole number, but 1 whole. We're giving 1 whole, but in a fraction form. Well, my denominator is already common, so I'm going to keep the denominator the same, but I need it to equal a whole, so I put 10 over 10. I already have 3/10, but I'm getting 10/10 more. So now I have 13/10. Now can I subtract 7/10? Well, yes, because 13 minus 7 is 6. Denominator stays the same because it's total in each. Then I go over to my whole numbers. 1 minus 1, again, is 0, which I don't have to put. So my answer is 6/10. However, I'm looking at 6 and 10. They're both even. I know I can divide that. I can divide each of those by 2 because I want to get to my lowest term. Okay, that's all you need to do with the video. This backside we will do in class, so please do not do any more. Just make sure that you have this in class ready to go. If you have any questions, write them down so that you don't forget them, so that we can have a discussion tomorrow about what you saw, what patterns you saw, what questions you may have, and we can answer those together.